Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to SEADOM seminar, online seminar number 3. My name is Dr. Joe Bowman. I'm the Executive Director of the Southeast Asian Directors of Music Association. It's so great to see so many people here this morning for this exciting topic that's going to touch on our musical future here in Southeast Asia. Before we introduce our seminar hosts and their guests, it would be really great to make sure that everyone knows that we have a few business things coming up here with our SEADOM Association, and just to let you know about that. First is regarding our membership for SEADOM. While it's certainly a very difficult time to think about being a member and maintaining membership when we seem to be, so far apart sometimes, SEADOM actually has maintained membership very well. We haven't really lost any, and we're very grateful for everyone who continues to be a member of our association. If you are a part of a university or a music program or a music training institute, or in any organization in Southeast Asia that does professional music training, you can be an active member. And in addition, we have our associate members for organizations and our associate members for individuals, and those are all available for you. If you are not the leader of your own institution or organization, we would be grateful if you would let your leaders know about SEADOM and invite them to get to know us more through our website and our other materials. And then we can also make sure that we are keeping ourselves in everyone's frame, so that when we're able to meet again in person, we're hopefully in 2022 that we'll be able to really push forward with a lot of new and exciting faces and voices. With that being said, I would just like to mention that our next SEADOM event is going to be our General Assembly, which is going to be taking place on Saturday, August 28th. The General Assembly is the yearly business meeting of the association, where we report on membership and finances and allow members to have the opportunity to share and to ask questions and to have a discussion. So that's going to be taking place here in about 2 weeks. And if you are interested, you're welcome to participate, and you'll be able to join in virtually the same way as we're joining here today. That being said, let's move on to today's guest and our lecture today, which is our 30 Under 30 project. Introducing these are the two seminar hosts, Dr. Anothai Nithibhon, who is a faculty member at the Princess Galyani Watana Institute of Music in Thailand, and also Dr. Ling. Khoo Ling, who is from the Yongseoto Conservatory of Music in Singapore. They will be our seminar hosts, and I will let them take it away from here. Thank you all very much, and we're really excited to see such a great turnout here in August. Anothai?
Hello, thank you very much, Dr. Joseph Bowman, for introducing both of us. And thanks you all for waking up on Saturday morning to join us today. So without further ado, let me introduce my very honored co-curator for these sessions today, Dr. Khoo Ling. Dr. Khoo Ling is a pianist. She's a music educator, researcher, and entrepreneur who seeks and maintains diverse interests in life that nourish her artistic soul. She's now, as Professor Dr. Joseph Bowman mentioned, she's now currently a lecturer at the Yongseoto Conservatory of Music, and she's also a founder of the music studios where she mentors piano teachers and students. So she has a very strong conviction to positively impact the music teaching community. She served also as the vice president of the Singapore Music Teachers Association, and also presented various platforms such as Southeast Asian Music Academy Online, Associate Board of the Royal Schools of Music Teacher Conference, and also currently the secretary for the executive committee for SEADOM as well. So it has been really an honor for me to work with Dr. Ling in the last 4 months, thanks to Professor Bernard Lansky, the president of SEADOM, suggestions. So we had a lot of fun in this project, and knowing a lot of people out because of like this project, and it's really wonderful to hear and learn and relearn a lot of things that she has to share. So without further ado, let me pass on this microphone to Dr. Khoo Ling and our sessions today. It's an honor. Thank you, Ling.
Thank you, Anothai. I also just wanted to mention that I learned a lot from you. It was a real inspiring process to be working with you on the SEADOM 30 Under 30 project. And I also wanted to tell everybody that, you know, the artists who are under the SEADOM 30 Under 30 project also inspired Anothai and myself deeply. Their energy, their passion, their zest for life, art, and music was something that really touched us, and we'd like to share that today. So today's topic is it's an introduction to the SEADOM 30 Under 30 project, and we will be telling it like a story. So any good story will start with an introduction, we'll have a narrative, and we'll end with some visions for the future, as well as some reflection on how this project has impacted my own teaching at YST. So the origin of this story started with Professor Bernard Lansky, whom I believe is here today. He might want to wave. Yeah, Professor Bernard Lansky was the former president of SEADOM and the dean of the Yong-Siew Conservatory of Music, and is the current director of the Queensland Conservatorium. So it started with Professor Bernard Lansky. Once upon a time, it was SEADOM 30 Under 30 project was a brainchild of his. Professor Bernard Lansky always believed that the future is for the younger ones. And he also believed that the Southeast Asian music scene needed much more confidence in what it had to offer, not just in traditional ethnic music, but in the diversity and the hybridity of genres and identities present in Southeast Asia. And so that is how the SEADOM 30 Under 30 project came about. Very initially, we had scoping exercises in 2018 at the PGVIS Symposium, as well as CMAX in Jogja. So what happened there was we gathered a bunch of musicians of all ages, played all sorts of instruments, had different experiences, and we gathered their interest as well as their ideas in forming such a project. And then we proceeded to recruit the characters in our story. The characters in our story are inspired by the International Music Council's 5 music rights, and you can check it out here on the slide. It's pasted here. It deals with the right for all children and adults to have access to music, as well as the right for all musical artists to be recognized justly for their work. So in the recruitment process, what we did was we asked applicants to reflect on how they felt about the 5 music rights and how they would use it to advance their own musical career, as well as the music scene in Southeast Asia. So recruitment began in late 2019 and throughout 2020, which was tough because of COVID. But we continued, and just to mention that also Mr. Gabriel Lee, who is here and will be featured as a mentor and partner later, was a key personnel in the recruitment process, as well as the starting of the whole project. So what we have here, we have one of our SEADOM 30 Under 30 artists, Miss Stephanie Quintin Avila, who will be sharing her reactions to the 5 music rights.
Music is an integral part of a person's life, and for this very reason, it is every person's right to have access to good musical education and have the freedom to express oneself through music. In our country, a lot of children do not have access to good music education. Public schools in rural areas do not have the resources to procure instruments. And there aren't enough teachers who are equipped to teach music. Because of the rising population, teachers are forced to teach subjects which they haven't specialized in. And most of the time, that subject is music. I believe this is a very complex issue which I alone could not solve. But as a music educator, I will try and continue to help alleviate the burden of our teachers through a teacher training program, which I am currently part of. And I hope to make this training program widely available for all teachers someday. I believe that it is through proper music education that we can solve other problems in the field of music, such as audience development, for example. If we expose our children to all kinds of music and teach them to have an open mind in understanding any genre of music, then we would definitely have a society that doesn't dismiss music just as a hobby, but rather as an essential part of their lives. And I certainly bet concert halls will always be full if that happens. As a music leader, it is my goal to bring together people, collaborate with them, create meaningful projects, and also help them promote their music. In the Philippines, it takes a lot of hard work to get funding for projects. Breaking even in concert productions and projects are quite unheard of, and sometimes takes a toll on the organizer's personal finances. As an arts events organizer, I hope to make this a more sustainable venture in the future. In terms of promotion of music, I hope to be able to collaborate more with my Southeast Asian musician neighbors and bring our respective music cultures to our countries and make it a learning experience, not just for the artists, but also for the audience, of course. For them to see that no matter how different we are in our traditions and way of life, we share similarities that serve as proof that we are connected and that we are one humanity.
So that was a wonderful example of how our SEADOM 30 and 30 under 30 artists are striving to make the Southeast Asian music scene a better place in reaction to IMC's 5 music rights. And so after we recruited our artists, Anothai and I started to define more clearly the mission behind the SEADOM 30 under 30 project. We started to set the wheels of the story in motion. So our mission encompasses the 3 E's: to embrace, endorse, and engage. What are we embracing? Well, we are embracing the multiplicity and hybridity of various musical styles and genres present in Southeast Asia. What are we endorsing? Well, we are endorsing a creative fusion of tradition, whilst our artists cultivate the next generation of musicians and audiences in their respective countries and across Southeast Asia, and hopefully in time to come across the globe as well. And we hope that we'll be able to provide platforms for our artists to gain visibility, collaborate artistically, as well as further develop professionally through dialogues, mentorships with partner artists, and showcase opportunities. We have a website that's still in the making. We will have the link for you at the end of the presentation so that you can check it out. It's in the mail. What we do in our website is we profile all our artists. And I also just wanted to take the chance to mention that 30 under 30, both the 30s inside are just a number. We're not sticking to it like a rule. What we initially wanted to do was to have 30 artists under the age of 30 by 2030. That's how the magic number 30 came about. But I just wanted to say here, now that as the project has matured, our artists don't necessarily have to strictly be below 30. What we're hoping is that eventually we'll have a continuous process of renewal where when artists are above the age of 30, they'll be able to take a more leading role, a more mentorship role in the SEADOM 30 under 30 project. So they'd still be under the project. And we also hope that the number 30 will increase and it won't just stay at 30. Yeah, so that's just wanted to make a small clarification there. And you'll also realize that, as you view the profiles later, you realize that all our artists embrace and expand upon what a Southeast Asian musical identity is, of hybridity, multiplicity, and diversity. So then after the mission, after setting up the website, we started to plan in more detail some of the proposed activities coming up. We started plotting the storyline of our narrative. And in this project, we are planning to have dialogues, showcases, as well as initiatives featured by our artists. Dialogues are seminars with our artists, but these are also open to the public. We have one coming up in September as well as in November. It's a chance for artists to network with each other and also with industry professionals. It's a chance for them to grow professionally as well. Showcases are opportunities for our artists to collaborate musically, as well as to engage in meaningful artistic discourse. More importantly, it gives them a platform for visibility. Initiatives are ideas that our artists come up with, and we hope that through the SEADOM 30 Under 30 project, we can support their advocacy for the arts, and through the process, empower them as well. So I'll pass the mic over to Anothai, who will talk about how we are starting to develop some of these initiatives.
So just after, thank you, Ling, for all the introduction. So after 2 months that we worked together in maybe sort of plotting all these structures, we tried to propose this to the first meeting with some of the CMU's later 30 Under 30. And we had our first official meeting on the 26th of June this year, and I myself and Ling, we were working like a secretary for the rest of the team to join in together, and they were kind of proposing some ideas. And one of the main ideas that was proposed, the ideas that we want to put music of ASEAN in the map, on the map of the world, and there are 5 items of things that were raised, and they thought that these are the very important point that we have to really push forward in the coming decades. So the first thing is professional development. This includes the idea of career orientation, working with stakeholders, finances, promotions. So these fall into this category. And then the second category that were mentioned today is the innovation. And innovation doesn't kind of stop just for the creation of music, but also the innovation in terms of cultural identities, connecting Southeast Asia and bringing Southeast Asia to the world as well. So this is kind of the idea of innovation that was discussed on that day. The third thing, which is equally important, is education and transmission. So they were discussing about community engagement, pedagogical approaches. So because we can't just work alone, we will need more and more people joining us together from different career in music to make it happen. And then the idea of transformation, research and practice, how can these two things go hand in hand and how it can enrich each other. The idea of exploration and exchange of idea and cultural identity, cultural backgrounds in music as well. And last but not least, musician well-being. This is very important. And thank you, Steph, for mentioning this during the meeting. And I know that Rachel and few people in YSC is also working on this as well. So the ideas of how can we keep our balance as artists and as a person, and not just musicians only helping each other, helping other people in kind of upholding their mood, but also as a musician, we also need this as well. So these are the kind of 5 rough areas that was discussed in 1.5 hours on June 26th. So a lot more to come. And then, so the next thing we'd like to share. Thank you, Ling, for introducing these title, The Ever After. So in some way, I'm reflecting with this story a little bit, like when we enter into music as a child or as a teenager, we always felt that music is such a beautiful thing. It's the wonderful stories, and you're gonna have happy ending always. But it's not always like that when you go into studying music, or when you get into music professions. It's not always happily ever after. And so what are we looking for here, and what can we learn from our young friends here? Like, how did that story unfold and how did the journey go? So I'm passing the microphone back to Ling so that she can introduce our first character.
And
The
so
shy,
starts
the
our
travelers, the
story.
teacher, the visit, and the artist.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So yeah, so in our story, in our SEADOM 30 under 30 story, we have quite a few characters today that we'll be featuring. We have the child, who is Calista Liaw, who is currently a student at YST. We have the traveler, who is Niranjan Pandian, who is adept at flutes, whether it's classical, Indian, or jazz flute. We have the teacher, Mr. Gabriel Lee, who also was a key personnel in starting the 30 under 30 project. And we have the wizard, who is adept in all sorts of skills, whether musical or non-musical, and that's Kenny. We also have finally the artist, who is Miss Thanisa Durongkaveroj from Thailand, who teaches artistically and artistically teaches. Yes. So without further ado, maybe let's welcome Miss Calista Liaw, who will be introducing herself as well as her work. She will also be answering the three main questions of boundaries, exploring her playground, and as well as reflecting on her experiences with parents and mentors.
Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Calista and I'm an Erhu musician, and it's a great honor to be sharing my story here today. So I'm currently a year 2 undergrad at Yonsei-do, and I'm studying music and society, and also a performance major in Erhu, and I'm also taking a second major in Southeast Asian studies. Okay, next slide. So getting into YST was actually a really unexpected and interesting journey for me. I did the integrated program at Nanyang Girls High in Hwa Chong, which means I did the GCE A-level examinations, and I was not studying music prior to university. And in fact, in my last 2 years of junior college, I wasn't playing my instrument at all because my parents were very traditional and strict Chinese parents, and they wanted me to focus on my national exams. So I was actually set on becoming a banker by pursuing a bachelor's in economics after graduation. And that's how I spent half a year interning in a private bank first. But unfortunately, my results were not the most ideal, and I fell short of getting into a good economics course. And this coincided with the period that I was playing the Erhu again. And I was going for Erhu classes again with the money I earned from my banking internship. So it's quite funny. And I even went on a Chinese music festival in Taiwan as a guest musician with NUS. So I think it was with all this that my parents were finally convinced that I could possibly pursue a career in music. And they did let me try auditioning for YST in the end. But many did not believe that I could. I did get quite a few negative questions from it, and about intergenerational disagreements with mentors. I actually fell out with my previous Erhu teacher, who did not believe in diversifying and picking up a new skill, which that was composition. So life was definitely not easy, and I missed the audition deadline that year, as it was already August, and I did not have anything in particular to audition with yet, considering that YST only offered composition, performance majors, or audio recording. And I couldn't audition with my Erhu, so I used the next 3 months before the audition deadline to take composition lessons. And I did this for juggling an internship with Thong. So Thong is a local arts organization and teaching students. So it was a really crazy ride, but my personal philosophy is that there's nothing too difficult to try, especially when I'm still a student and I'm somewhat in a protected environment. Okay, next one. Okay, so after getting to YST, I was first a composition major of the MS-MCP program. And during one of my consultations with my advisor, Prof. Chan, who is also the Vice Dean, he asked if I would jump on an opportunity if YST were to create a new performance major option for me to play Erhu. So I definitely took it immediately, and not to say that I didn't like composition, but it was a huge career boost forward for me. So these are some things that I do as a Erhu musician. So I really love creating unique music videos, as I want to reimagine and reinvent the Erhu while being able to fuse things that I really love, like fashion and music. So these pictures are some collaborations that I've done with local fashion brands, and for music videos or concerts. So the poster in the middle is actually my first solo digital concert that I did in collaboration with Arts Theatre in Singapore. And yep, and on the bottom right corner, that is actually the album cover of a Spotify album that I released recently. So that's Who Plays Debussy, Who as in HU for Erhu. And this was actually a project that was supported by YST. So I'm actually really grateful for that. So this is a Erhu lo-fi album that I did with audio recordings classmate of mine. And yeah, so it's, I think, something that people haven't really done yet. So this was pretty cool. And so being a Chinese instrumentalist in a Western conservatory, there are definitely some opportunities that have opened and closed for me. So the biggest one would definitely be being able to switch performance majors and getting opportunities to share the things that I do and experiment with new things. But opportunities that have closed would probably be things like playing in orchestra or chamber. But I guess with the direction I'm headed in, it's a fair trade-off. Yeah, okay, next one. And so the kind of platforms that appealed to me, yeah, were very much online based, as I actually started making music videos for my Instagram and YouTube before COVID. So pivoting to this new digital model was not something that was too different or difficult for me. So it also resulted in this crazy thing where my instrument duo partner, Jonathan, who is a musician at the Singapore Chinese Orchestra, we actually got scouted by a film music company in LA, and that's how we recorded the film music remotely in Singapore for a Michael Bay movie. And it was something that we never really imagined would have been possible. So I think this also shows how with COVID and digital collaborations, it actually opens up the borders of musical collaborations. Right, okay, next slide, yeah. So apart from performing, I mentioned that I was a composition major before, and one really interesting collaboration that I did was bridging traditional and contemporary with this solo Erhu contemporary work that I wrote for myself, and it was recorded and played through the tunnels of Esplanade. And so I actually worked with this contemporary Chinese ink artist. So after recording my work, she actually painted these mega paintings that you can see a little bit in the picture. She painted these 7 mega paintings based on my music. And so it was actually on exhibition from this year at the Esplanade Tunnel. So I'm not sure if some of you got to catch it. Okay, next slide. Lastly, to tie all of this with my major at YST, being a music and society student, I have to write papers, like lots of papers. And over the summer break, I actually got to intern with the Singapore Chinese Orchestra. And I wrote a paper on engagement and partnerships amidst the pandemic for orchestras. So after I presented it at a staff meeting, some of the initiatives that I suggested for SEO on moving forward with the pandemic, they actually got to be materialized before the end of my internship, like this going virtual of the virtuosos. So I wanted to find a way to bring back the social element of concerts, even despite it being digital productions, and then a fundraising campaign based on some concepts that I was studying during my research paper. Okay, so and that brings me to the end of my presentation. And yep.
That's really powerful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Calista.
Thank you, Anothai and Ling.
Very, I think you have given a presentation of yourself that's extremely multifaceted. And what always impresses me in your energy and your spirit going forward is your willingness to take risks as well as create your own opportunities. And I had a question for you before opening up the question to the floor. In creating your own opportunities, how do you feel that in what ways were you supported by your school environment to create your own opportunities?
I think one of the most inspiring things that I've experienced since coming to YST would definitely be the kind of classes that I was taking. So for example, being an MSMCP student, I had consultations with Prof. Chan and Prof. Khoo. So I regularly got to discuss the projects that I was on, and they were very good mentor in suggesting things that I could possibly explore or how I could further improve the projects that I was really wanting to experiment with, planting new ideas in my head, and which is very motivational. And not only Prof. Chan and Prof. Ho, but the general environment in YST is something that I really, really enjoy because wherever I go, I get to have really inspiring conversations with whoever, be it teaching faculty, assistants, my friends. So I think this is how I got inspired to create more opportunities for myself in a way, because there's a very strong support circle at YST. Yeah. And also, of course, there is things like the Artistic Development Grant, which allows me to explore more things, supported by the school. Yeah.
Thank you, Calista. Would like to open up the questions to the floor. So wondering if anybody has any questions for Calista at this point in time, feel free to ask.
If not, we can continue, and you can always ask at the end of each presenters. Yeah. So should we go next to our next character then? Niranjan.
Hi all. First of all, thank you to Dr. Anothai and Ling to curate and guide us through this presentation. On that note, so basically the traveler. Let me introduce myself and how I became the traveler. My name is Niranjan Pandian, and I'm actually a exponent of the Indian bamboo flute based in Singapore. I play across genres, cross-collaborate with fraternities, disciplines, and I've toured around Southeast Asia, East Asia, South Asia with ensembles such as CSN Consonant, Open Score Project, and many other ensembles, orchestras, bands, performing for, ranging from Arangi dance, recital, Bharatanatyam, to Southeast Asian melodies, as well as cross Indo-Jazz, Indo-Western music systems. Currently, I'm mentored by Maestro Amit Nadik, who is a Indian classical flautist, one of the maestros in India, Pandit Ronu Majumdar, who's a Grammy nominee, as well as Shashank Subramaniam. And of course, I'm also in acquaintance with Nestor Torres, who has been guiding my Indo-Jazz framework of thinking and thought processes. And currently, I'm also signed by Believe Music International as a music composer and a flautist. And I release tracks, and which has won awards in Munich Music Video Film Awards as well. And I'm currently pursuing jazz music at the LaSalle College of Arts with the National Arts Council Scholarship. But on that note, so how would I be the traveler in that case? In this notion, I'm going to talk about how I not traveled around the world, but traveled across music systems. And actually, those journeys were far more profound for me than physically traveling across borders. And basically, that's what I'm going to talk to you about and have a discussion on. And next slide, please. On that notion, everybody has to have a start. You have to have a starting point, right? Wherever you are in life. So basically, just like how Calista was from the banking industry, I was actually majoring in accountancy at the Singapore University of Social Science. I was on my third year and I was about to graduate. And then, bam, touring started. And when I started touring, then I was realizing that my calling was not in an accounting field, but to connect with communities. When I was performing, I was having this special connection on the stage with the audience, which I didn't have any idea at that time. So that's when I took a step back, realigned my vision and mission in life, and developed an action plan 6 years back. And that was to communicate with people from all walks of life through music, and to connect communities with music projects and ideation processes. So that brought me to a 5-year plan and 10-year plan, where 5-year plan was to develop as a renowned flautist in Southeast Asia and worldwide, as well as, to compose and direct music for fraternities, and, to develop an ecosystem in Singapore and Southeast Asia. So the 5 and 10-year plan, it's very long, and I've just summarized the brief for you. So in that sense, let's move on to the next slide. So the journey. So I have broken my entire music career into 4 different categories as I operate in these 4 functions. And I look at them as 4 different distinct experiences, but they all connect into my vision and mission ultimately. So as a performing artist, of course, I traveled with ASEAN to, we performed in Bangkok at Biennial, the Thai Countdown 2016, the 34th ASEAN Summit. There were numerous ASEAN-based performances as well as music festivals. We also performed locally with Kalautam, Esplanade, National Gallery of Singapore, National Arts Council, MCCY, all the government organizations. We've actually partnered with them to perform. I've performed with bands. If you realize, I don't only operate as a performer in an Indian classical setting. So I started out as a Bharatanatyam flautist to play. In one corner, there will be an orchestra where you play for sancharis or movements. And then you learn the art of how you pair sounds or the role of the flute for movements. And then at the same time, where I was thrown into an Indian classical setting where you need to play kacheri, you need to play concert. The teacher was saying you need to memorize a 30-minute repertoire or even a 2-hour repertoire. So I was flunked into that side of genre. And then at the same time, I was playing Indian pop. I was playing BGM scores. I was thrown into that realm. And then during this time, I was thrown into the digital world where I have to record, set up a studio, and then I have to record for composers in the Hollywood industry, sometimes composers in the Southeast Asia music industry. Everything has been digitalized. So every journey, every experience, every moment connected me to people. More than the manifestation of the project, it was people who moved me. Is that friendship that you developed. So that will ultimately, I will come back to the point later on. So as a composer, of course, I've done Tadeu Duwai, which has won awards in Munich Music Film Awards. And it has been also documented by Sunday Times under Unsung Singapore Icons. So they basically featured 10 Singapore icons during National Day. And that was, I was featured there alongside this track. And then The Inner Urge, which was just released featuring Desire. Desire was one of the songs that featured Chinese instrumentalists. So we were moving cross-border as well in that sense. And of course, there were numerous background scores that we have done for production houses. That was alongside composer and music production. Of course, Brahmastra, the third category, as a music director of Brahmastra, it was a long way. I founded the ensemble. It's an Indo-Asian jazz ensemble. So we moved along and now we are playing, we're featuring Asian artists. We have done Arts in Neighborhood series with NAC. We are now also performing few commissions that's coming along the way this rest of this year. I'm going to summarize. And as a creative head, this creative head thing is a very new thing for me. I just started out as a creative head. So basically we are starting out this Brahmastra Festival Arts and Music, the first ever digital concert that features traditional and contemporary artists and musicians in Singapore. So basically that is powered by MCCY and NYC. So we are already curated and we have digitalized it. So we're waiting to launch that in October and December respectively. And that sums up my journey as a performing artist, composer, music director, and creative head. These 4 unique experiences bridged me to traversing musical borders. So you might ask, how did I traverse musical borders? Every time when I connected with people, I don't think about what music genre they are from. I don't think about what community they are from. I only think what kind of soul they are and how we are going to connect. So when I connect, their stories deeply resonate with me. And then that's when I understand about their community, understand where they are from and what their perspectives are. So in each of these experiences, I always connect with people, and that's always my main fundamental as an artist. And then I bridge them into the notion of storytelling. Whether you are a composer, whether you are a performer, you are performing in an alap in a Carnatic setting, you're actually telling a story. Let's say it's a rega pada sada paga. You're asking a question. Gare gare so do sa re gare so do sa. That's in a blue mode. So you're just moving across different communities, different musical languages, but fundamentally telling stories. Next slide, please. So this points out to what is artistic identity then. So if you're traversing different musical borders and you're everywhere, you're playing all genres, and then what is then artistic identity? You may question or ponder on that. For me, artistic identity, though it's there are pros and cons to that, but as much as they're very useful, my journey has actually helped affirm me as an Indian classical flautist who's versatile, who was a performer, composer, and improviser, importantly. And as such, that has been my artistic identity and has developed and shaped it. Even the more I compose materials, people usually look at me as a flautist. So that is the artistic identity that I've tried to break many times, and it has happened recently with MediaCorp coming in place, collaborating with TV stations to bring awareness to people that artistic identity, it's more than the physical appearance or what we hold on to or what we have built on. So genres are not born out of are born out of community practice, but they shouldn't define artistic identity. And my question to you in the hall is: artistic identity important? Is it the very fundamental of musicianship? And that being said, for me, artistic identity and my identity as a human being has merged together over the years. I try my best to break both of them, trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good, good son, at the same time trying to be a good musician, good producer, good director. Ultimately, these characters fade in, and that are intricacies of artistry, and that is the life of an artist. And we want to bring this journey to different people, to students, to educate them to see deeper meanings of art and music. Hopefully I've touched your lives and whatnot. Feel free to ask questions, and thank you so much to Dr. Ling and Dr. Anothai for curating this again. It was a wonderful experience.
Thank you, Niranjan. Definitely, you have really inspired us. And in some way, as you say, that you are being inspired by people, being able to connect to people through your journey. But of course, you send very good reverberations throughout the world with your music. So thank you for sharing with us. And I really love the ideas about identity, artistic identity. It's always, in some way, we always in quest of finding it, isn't it? Every artist, every musician, that's the ultimate goal. We need to find our own artistic identity. But as you say, I really agree that it's the pros and cons, and whether is it good enough that we acquire our artistic identity and we lose our human identity. So that's in some ways non-negotiable in some ways. So what do you think, Ling? Do you agree with me on this point?
Yes, I definitely agree. And I actually had a related question to that. I don't know if I have time to ask that. Yeah. So thanks, Niranjan. That was I think you have a really soulful relationship with music, and that's really what inspired me. I'm related to what Anothai has just mentioned. You talked about traveling across traversing musical borders, right? And at the end of the day, it all comes together as one. I'm just wondering, whether along the way there were experiences which were discouraging, where people saw you as, or maybe fellow musicians saw you as, hey, he's a classical Indian musician, why is he doing that? That makes him less of a classical Indian musician. Did you have to grapple with some of these issues?
Yeah, wonderful question. I mean, yes, there was the silver lining there. There's always a push and pull in there. But ultimately, so you see, there are two groups of people. There's the traditionalists and the contemporary. For me, as much as they are two distinct, they have very common characteristics, and they're very important people in the music society. Traditionalists keep in check whether your aesthetics are in line. Contemporary checks in whether your musicianship and the musicality is going on. I'm very fortunate to have teachers and gurus who have seen beyond music systems. Like Dr. Amit Nadik, he improvises with European jazz, free jazz musicians. So he says the way they fuse in genres, he keeps saying, always respect the sound first. Sound comes first, and then you talk about community and their community relationships with sound. So initially, I didn't understand the meaning of that. I mean, even when I went into jazz, where I had zero Western music training, zero or nothing. When I went there, and people were talking about harmonic analysis, and I quickly started grasping that with an understanding to sound. Lectures keep emphasizing sound comes first, regardless of whatever genre you are. And when sound started registering, I took a very deep relationship with sound. I picked up nuances, intricacies in music systems, because they are all to do with community. The blues has a community as a flat third there. It's going on. And then when you talk about Carnatic ragas, there's certain nuances to that. So that helped me bob between one to one. So the teachers, normally the teachers that I learned from were very, very supportive. And the music industry in Singapore is really, really very, very helpful in that way. They're very open-minded, even in Southeast Asia for the matter. The main stakeholders in the music industry in Southeast Asia are very open-minded, and they're really pushing this forth. And that's very heartening to see. In India, there are restrictions, of course, because there's aesthetic sambradaya. They're very careful with how their music is being portrayed. But that being said, as an Indo-Asian musician, our philosophy in music making is creative expression and to create identity. Yeah, in India, a lot of these musicians actually playing music to protect their lineage, to protect their aesthetics. So as papers, it is very clear that we have two contrasting philosophies in music making. And when we put forth that philosophy to them, they really understand that, because ultimately they know we are not from the same lineage, but we have similar musicianship. So hopefully I answered that question.
Yes, you did very nicely. Thank you, Niranjan. And I think that brings us also very nicely to our next character, because Niranjan was mentioning that it was so helpful to have gurus who are supportive, and Gabriel is exactly that. He's a guru. So I will let Gabriel introduce himself. He's been a very crucial part of the SEADOM 30 Under 30 project as well.
Hi everyone, and thank you to Anothai and Ling for bringing this project to life and for organizing this session. I'm really so glad to be a part of this wonderful initiative since its birth in Yogyakarta. And so just a really quick intro of myself. I'm a violinist and I perform actively in Singapore and in the region in multiple genres on my modern and Baroque violins. Currently teaching at the YST Conservatory as well as at the School of the Arts in Singapore. In 2017, I founded the Music Society of Myanmar, which is a non-profit music association registered in Myanmar that organizes festivals, concerts, masterclasses, and seminars with the mission of making music accessible to all. And when COVID hit last year, I also co-founded the Southeast Asia Music Academy Online with 4 other educators in the region, including Kenny, who will be speaking after me. So in response to the first question that has been given to me, how are students of today different from yesterday? I think we have the perfect example earlier on with Calista, right, who really epitomizes the keywords that you see on the next slide. So can we have the next slide, please? Yeah, so firstly, I think, students diversify earlier. They have more varied interests. I have a 10-year-old student whom I was just teaching right before this, and she plays violin, she plays piano, as well as erhu, all to a very high level. I also have a few students who, besides playing violin, they draw really well. And there's also one who is already interested to get into Baroque violin at the age of 16. So I think this is because they're exposed to a really wide range of influences from a young age, with the internet being a key reason. And because of an early exposure to the internet, they have to learn so many things off the web, and they can become so much more independent learners. So we see many of them also producing their own videos and already having their own. So the follow-up question would be, what magic do teachers need to acquire nowadays, right? So can we have the next slide, please? So, well, I think firstly, we need to be more creative than ever in the classroom and to be adept in the use of technology. So something that I find quite useful in my teaching studio is the use of the loop pedal. And so I use it to teach improvisation, rhythm, as well as to get students to listen carefully to what I'm playing and to respond or to copy. right? So it's usually used for teaching adults improvisation, but I found that it could also be used very effectively in teaching the young ones. And many of them are always intrigued by it and really look forward to playing with it as like a reward, after having done their exercises and the more serious stuff. So here I have a short clip showing me teaching my 6-year-old student with the loop pedal. So maybe you could play the video. Okay, just copy my rhythm now. Yeah, so that's just a really short example, but I also use it to teach the supposedly more boring skills, finger exercises, etc., to get them to internalize the harmony as well as like the finger patterns. So how do teachers acquire these types of creative skills? I think the pandemic has prevented us from traveling, but has really brought many of us closer as an online community. And so the Southeast Asia Music Academy Online has been providing teacher training in various courses, such as Delcro's Eurythmics, which is basically teaching music through movement and games. And we see in this picture on the left our instructor, Jerrison Harper Lee, who's really adept at teaching big groups of students online. And it's always eye-opening watching him teach those sessions. There's also the Kodai method, which teaches music through singing. And these concepts can be applied not just in choirs, but also in classrooms and ensembles like bands and orchestras. And this course is taught by Susanna Saw, who is one of the foremost Kodai practitioners. And in our recent conference in June, we also had the honor of having Benjamin Zander as well as Professor Bernard Lansky and Anothai as our keynote speakers. And they really gave us such inspiration. And I think, so many of us left the conference with a lot of new magic. So the third question given to me was, what roles do teachers play in preserving cultural traditions? So if we have the next slide, please. So with the work that I do at the Music Society of Myanmar, one of our core missions is to preserve traditional Myanmar music and art and make it relevant to the 21st century. By commissioning new works and organizing composition competitions, we encourage young composers to compose music fusing Western and traditional elements. Besides teaching Western classical music, we also have classes and competitions for Myanmar traditional music. But I think getting the young people to be interested in their own traditional music is not the easiest thing to do. So I think as teachers, we need to lead by example. And it's actually not for the reason that I picked up the Myanmar harp, but I myself have been really fascinated by the instrument and really wanted to learn it. And so my Myanmar student, Gumseng Ongdu, who's also part of this SEADOM 30 under 30, I think he's not here today, but here he performs a Kachin composition at one of our concerts, which we make a point to always include some Myanmar music. So maybe we could just play a little bit of this clip. to education and technology? If yes, how so? So most students in Singapore have either a laptop or an iPad, but this is not so in many other Southeast Asian countries. So when schools pivot online, not all students can access these online classes and do their online assignments. And so another question is how do your projects overcome this? Right. So last year, the Music Society of Myanmar did a community outreach project called Sounds of Myanmar with about 100 children in 8 different villages, led by Rachel Ho, who's also part of this SEADOM 30 under 30 group. And this was done asynchronously with videos being sent back and forth. The children were taught how to make music with their bodies and everyday items. And to make this happen, an adult had to show them our videos and record their responses for us. So the students really looked like they had fun learning. And for many of them, it was their first experience in making music. And I think that in itself is really quite priceless. So I think in conclusion, as educators and artists, we need to be creative, more than ever in the way we teach, as well as in the way we reach out to our communities. So thank you very much. And back to you, Hui Ling and Anothai.
Thank you, Gabriel. That was, again, also another inspiring presentation there. Yeah, I think we need to change from teacher to guru. I think guru has much more weight in there. And I also did want to ask, because you were talking about preserving tradition and the roles that teachers play, at the same time, your teaching is also very innovative. And I wanted to ask what you think, or whether you have faced, again, issues in this area, whether, you find that preserving tradition and innovating on it, are they opposing sides of the coin, or do they work together for you?
I think I 100% agree with what Niranjan said just now. The tradition really keeps us in check. That we are in terms of aesthetics, right? But being progressive, I think that's nature of being human, right? We always want to evolve. We always want to get better. We always want to explore different ways of doing things, different approaches. So I think it's as an artist, we always have to balance these two things really well, in order to keep our identity, as well as to keep reimagining and to keep evolving. I think that's really important.
Is it hard to get students on board with this approach?
Well, not really. I think with the students these days, who are also constantly looking for new ideas, new things that fascinate them. They're always being influenced by different things, K-pop and whatnot, pop culture. I think it's more of a challenge getting them to just do the really traditional the exercises that they do need in order to grow as an artist.
Yeah.
Just one thing that I'd like to add for Gabriel. I just realized one thing, that you are also a student of Burmese Harp. So in a way, being a teacher, and we always think that the teacher always have to learn new ways of teaching, new toys, new gadget of how to teach music. But the other side we completely forgot is that we also have to learn, sometimes when we learn new music traditions, learning new musical instruments, I think it sort of like put us in the shoes of our students as well. So, and especially when you learn new instruments. So do you have any experience to share on that when you learn Burmese harp?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, like, just feeling like a complete beginner. It's then putting myself in the shoes of a student who comes to me as, at that stage of learning as well. I think it gives me kind of a little bit more empathy, when I'm teaching, to be more patient, and to really not assume that they should know anything at all, but just really teaching them step by step. I think that the whole process of learning something new has definitely helped me in my teaching as well.
Yeah. And I assume that it's also a different teaching tradition as well, isn't it? It's not the same way that how a Western classical music is being taught, but when you learn with, let's say, Southeast Asian instrument, it's different approach. So is there anything you can share with that?
Well, I think in some ways there are also quite a bit of similarities, and it does help that I already have a foundation in music. So a lot of things, a lot of steps can be skipped. I didn't really have to go through like a complete beginner. But at the same time, also just having an awkward new instrument and adapting to it definitely is a huge challenge.
Yeah, so it's not always just a new gadget, but also a new approach, new way of thinking as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So this can lead us to our next presenter, who's dealing most of his time with the new gadget. So please go ahead. Let's hear from Kenny.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Kenny from Penang, Malaysia. So I'm a musician, a producer, and also a social entrepreneur, and a little bit of like accountant or business. Okay. I graduated from the YST Conservatory of Music last year as a trumpet major. Prior to my graduation, I founded Durongkaveroj, which is a social enterprise based in Malaysia. I will explain about the concept of social enterprise later. I was selected as one of the top 20 social entrepreneurs by the Australian ASEAN Council last year. And this year was one of the nominees for the Asia Youth Leadership Award and under scholarship, which this week. Over the course of my musical journey, I've experienced significant development in growing and expanding my artistic identity. And now I will share these developments with you. Okay, next slide. Conductor from school band. And I completed a diploma in business accounting, like Niranjan and some of us, like typical Asian parents mindset that to have another backup plan before going into a certain stuff, right? So yeah, and after that I went on to my study at the conservatory. Then across the 4 years in the school, I found my interest in arts administration and production. So I was involved in most of the core production team of various productions in the school. For example, the International Artistic Research Symposium in 2019, and the Singapore's premieres of Wagner's The Valkyrie in early 2020, just right before the pandemic. It was at that stage where I realized that as a musician, we need to know and learn more beyond just our wonderful music making. In a simple word, it would be being a good and skillful musician is not enough, especially in the 21st century that we are living in. Why? This statement has been proven when the whole world was affected by the global pandemic, right? This is because we have always been interacting physically for concerts, rehearsals, lessons, and recordings. We have to stay at home, and then things change drastically during the pandemic. We have to stay at home and move every activity that we have been doing into a digital platform. For most of us, this is a significant shift in the music community. So here comes the point where we need to learn how to work this out, right? Especially during the transitional period, like setting up the equipment, testing the sound and video quality, dealing with internet connections, and more. And these are the skills which some of us think we don't need them even before the pandemic. Like we don't even expect this to happen, right? So furthermore, like some students might be involved in virtual collaborations. They have to know how to record at their home. They have to know the different video angles and sound quality that they can get to best represent their own artistic identity. So it takes another effort to set up and also followed by a continuous self-criticism process. Yes, of course, we all hope that we could return to the normal life, but I think no one knows when is this going to be. So there are some key questions to think about on digitalization. The first question is, how can we still deliver our value as musicians at any time from anywhere? Does our music making process only restrict to certain venues or structures? So I would say we have to accept the fact that the digital side of learning and teaching, or even performing, will still be part of our musical journey even after this pandemic. And we have to find ways to enhance our skills in this field. Hence, together with my team at the Rondo Production, we think that it is our responsibility to provide useful resources for the young musicians to empower their knowledge and also their skills through new and innovative concepts. So we have launched different series of programs, digital program last year, over the year, like online tutorials, panel discussion with different stakeholders from concert organizers to sponsors to even business community, just to keep the general community motivated and inspired. Next slide. And I'm personally very grateful that throughout my years at the conservatory, I had the opportunity to involve in different productions, ranging from chambers to the operas. Through these various stages, it makes me to rethink the value of music and art to the community and how we can ensure the sustainability of our own craft making and business. So the keyword here is always about sustainability, whether it's financial sustainability or environmental sustainability. In order to identify and connect the gaps between music, culture, and business, I went on to take different courses on arts, culture management, community building, website development, fundraising concepts, and more. And one of the most significant one I've completed was from Facebook. So I am a certified Facebook community manager. So where in the program, we get to meet a lot of different young leaders across different sectors and companies like Facebook itself, Google, Coca-Cola, and more. So I had the opportunity to speak with them on their perspective of music to them and their business. And what I'm trying to do is to let them know that we are musicians, but we are not aliens. So trying to connect them together with the business industry and also make music more relevant to them so that they can give us money in some way. In this journey, I see myself going into the role of social entrepreneur who curate and produce music-related activities. So what is a social enterprise? It is a combination of for-profit making company, like the traditional business model that we are doing, and non-profit organization. Social enterprises are businesses that put the benefits of community ahead and also social impact. We are driven by a social mission, and we always need to reinvest our profits into creating positive social change. So together with my team at the Rondo Production, we channel our efforts to make music relevant to the community and encourage youth empowerment through music education. And there's another point where we always think about is that also when we speak about the loss of income from most of the artists, we almost forgot about the underprivileged community who are also, or maybe even more heavily impacted than the artists ourselves. So our most recent activity was the annual festival. It was supposed to happen physically, but we have made a choice to transform it digitally. So which is the Rondo Fest, which concluded in June 2 months ago. So we have welcomed various stakeholders and about 250 attendees and artists involved across 13 countries and provided over 40 scholarships for a 4-day music learning experience. And together with Gabriel and like the rest of the team, Sowin, Andrew, and Irene, we established the Southeast Asia Music Academy Online as a platform for music teachers and students to upskill and expand their horizons. And now it's time for some marketing. Business, right? Yeah. So here's a video highlight of our activities at the Rondo Fest.
I would say that this festival was able to attend every level of participants.
This is such a great platform for the student and for the artist faculty, so we are still together through music.
Everything is very smooth and it's well thought out, the amazing drop. It's like very seamlessly.
To give a big compliment to the team of the Rondo production. They did a wonderful job. And I think the student in Marcia is really lucky to have you.
Yeah, so this is the so the festival ended with a concert where we try to encourage the musicians to know more about our local folk songs. So we get a arranger to arrange, and then I curate a sort of a series of animations just to accompany the concert. And yeah, so finally, after all the lengthy thought, of course, there are necessary skills for us to become better musicians, right? But in order to be a more future-ready musician nowadays, we need to acquire a few more additional skills. I will list them as firm, flexibility, interpersonal communication, resilience, and motivation. First, being flexible means we are able to adapt to different situations and shift our strategies as a musicians to overcome our challenges in our journey. Next, interpersonal communication skills. It becomes more important than ever when we are staying at home, right? It takes even more effort to convey information and also to communicate effectively through a camera or through a screen. So I believe that if someone is able to communicate effectively through web camera, he or she will definitely have no problem dealing back with the face-to-face communication. Thirdly, resilience is a word where we have been hearing over and over again, but what does that mean? This is very essential, especially for young music students. We need to know how to cope with the ever-changing challenges and setbacks we encounter in our life. And most importantly is come back stronger for them. It requires a strong and determined mindset to achieve this. And the last skill would be motivation. We need to know how to motivate ourselves and others at this difficult time so that we can keep going and improving even if we are at home or coping with digital learning. And I believe that this is a journey that we are all in this together. As much as I would love to share, the conversation could go beyond this presentation. Allow me to share one last view. I believe that skills are like color pencils. I'm not sure whether you still do use it, but yes, just take it. It is always good to have more colors in the box, right? But after a while, some of the color pencils become blunt, like our skills. We just need to take some time to sharpen them. So as musicians, as artists, wherever you are, first, we need to collect our own color pencils. So feel free to connect with me on Instagram or Facebook if you have any questions. Yeah, that's all for me.
Thank you, Kenny. Indeed, it was many different skills there. I have one tiny question for you. When you first started out as a student, did you know that you would come to this point? Did you envision yourself coming to this point?
No, definitely no. I was kind of expecting to be an orchestral musician sitting on stage taking full-time salary. Yeah, and yeah, as mentioned throughout the journey, I realized that I did have a question where do we need more better musicians or do we need more producers to support these musicians? And I think I chose the second path. Yeah.
Did you face any personal struggles or during
Yes.
along the way, in this transition? Would you be comfortable sharing maybe some of them?
Yeah, I think the most difficult thing to me is from switching to this role, it means you need to have something going on, like for example, an event or a festival, something like that, a project. And these projects requires money. And I'm not coming from a very well-off family. So I took a lot of risks throughout these 2 years of since I founded the Rondo production. So what I've been doing is to try to pay the artists fairly, and then but at the same time we have to reduce reduce the registration fee for the students to engage in our projects, right? So there's a huge gap that we need to fill in with sponsorships and also donations. So this is something that I have to encounter every year, and the amount just keep growing and growing. From I started off with a 30K budget for a brass festival, 30K ringgit, which is 10K Sing dollar, and I managed to secure sponsorships for that. And then this year with the digital production is about 30K Sing dollar. So every year the budgets keep growing, and I need to engage with more stakeholders, and I need to speak with them even more and in a more different way, like how we can connect their business with what we've been doing, and also finding different ways where we can collaborate, not just getting the money from them. So I think a lot of musicians think that just write in a letter to the company to say, I need sponsorship. But what we need to think is what do they need from us? What can we help their company in any other pillars of their roles in the society? Yeah, so these are the challenges. And it's a continuous process for every year, throughout the year, as I would say.
Thank you, Kenny. That was really, really insightful.
Just following through Hui Ling's questions, I'm just wondering, do you think that it will be much more helpful for you that the school teaches these skills, or do you prefer that this, like from your experience writing letters to all these companies, is it more more helpful that it was taught in school, or you can't actually do that in school, but you have to really learn it in life? Do you have any recommendation for the next generation so that they don't need to walk through fires like what you just did?
Yeah. I think YSD did incorporate such module in certain sense. But I think it's a mix. We do have a mixture of both hands-on experience and also theoretical knowledge. And yes, it would definitely be very good if the school can also have a set of just a set of modules focusing on business, not just business for musicians, but it's really business. It's a business. Because to me, I think that business for musicians and business for other people is still the business. Everything is about profit making for the other side of the world, right? But from our end, we always want to spread our passion, but to the other side of the world would be like, passion, how much does passion cost? They don't care about it, right? Yeah.
So it's an ability to explain passions.
Yeah.
To layman, at least something like that, isn't it? And or at least or maybe just to be able to convince people that they have shared passion with you. It doesn't matter whether those passions are kind of like keep the alignment between the two passions.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And was it helpful to have the background in accountant? Do we all need do we need to all go through that before, or what is your recommendation? I mean, is it?
I would say having a basic knowledge of accounting, like at least you know what are the incomes, what are the expenses, and then how you calculate your profit, so that you can manage your own. Yeah, even for your own development, will be very helpful as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think if you're taking from this point that most of the musicians are not familiar with the balance of the class. So is this the end of the artist? Is it, or since we are not equipped, most of us are not equipped with these skills in the school, so we are getting to the next presenters, Thanisa, the artist, and we start the question with the end, whether are these the end of our career or not, please. Go ahead, Thanisa.
Thank you, Ajahn Anothai, and thank you everybody for sharing about your projects and musical journey. I'm very inspired just by sitting here listening to you guys, so thank you. My name is Thanisa, and I'm a pianist from Thailand. And my presentation today might be just as scattered as my musical journey as of now, because I ask so many questions when I do music, or sometimes I need breaks. Yeah, it's just been an ongoing process of figuring out my musical journey and knowing what the purpose is for me to make music. So I would just like to share a little bit about how it's going so far. Maybe some of this you can relate to, and some of this you can give me advice on. So without further ado, let's do the next slide. Thank you. So this is a little bit about me, and as you can see, it's pretty scattered too. So I graduated with a piano performance degree from Oberlin Conservatory in the US, and also a political communication degree at Oberlin College. So since college, I was already kind of scattered between the two worlds I was living in. I was practicing piano a lot at the same time as debating a lot about social issues. And a lot of the social issues that I talked about was about Thailand, because that was where I was coming from, you know, looking back to Thailand from the perspectives that I learned. So yeah, when I was in college, I did a lot of art projects that depicted social commentary. And then I asked myself what I was doing in classical music to make that about my identity and my people and my social backgrounds. So it prompted me with the question of, what music should I be making? What music should reflect my identity and thoughts? Can music communicate all these political issues that I'm having? So right after graduation, I decided to come back to Thailand, and I worked as a documentary producer for a TV program that was about senior living. So as Thailand was entering an aging society, we were just trying to inspire lifestyles that seniors don't have to stay home all the time waiting for their grandkids to come home. So yeah, that was the first step into my post-graduation career. And you can see that it's not about music at all, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with music. But then after a while, I really missed music, and I felt like I could use music to connect more with the community. So an opportunity presented itself. I moved to Hua Hin, which is a beach town south of Bangkok. And I learned so much from the kids. I was learning just as much as I was teaching. And I was doing all these classes that I never had as a kid. I was teaching songwriting, music theory, but in a like more fun way. And I was just learning about music that my kids were listening to. And that was not something that I grew up with and believing that was music education until I became a teacher. And I felt like the kids already had so much input that I could be learning from them, and they could be using that to further their music studies. Was also collaborating with some art projects with the kids, some musical theater projects, a lot of productions in school. That was a lot of fun. Also taught creative writing. Yeah, and so I'll show you some of my kids' work in the next slide. But yeah, as of now, because of COVID-19 and also some job stability issues as a musician, I'm working as a translator for a tech company, which is, you know, I think taking a break from music is something that I constantly go to. And at the same time, musicians worldwide, I think, are experiencing some difficulties in terms of gig live performances. And so this is what I'm doing as a way out. But yeah, I'm still a musician. I didn't quit forever. But yeah, but on the side, I'm also learning a lot from transcribing music for a streaming platform, and that's my way of keeping it up with music and just listening what other people are making on the online platform. So yeah, that's a lot about me. Let's go to my music education. So next slide, please. Thank you. So I just want to show a few videos of my work with the kids in different schools. This is one of the home schools that I was working with, and this is the music video club the kids were making their own scripts. As you can see, the blank sheet of paper, just ask them, what's the song about? What's the shooting plan? Who's going to be what? Who's going to be the tiger? Who's going to be the cheetah? Who's going to be the hunter? And they just wrote their own music. At this age, they can't even write yet. So they tell me what to write and I wrote it for them, and they try to read what they were saying and they try to sing their own songs. So let's have a look at this.
One, go.
Cheetahs are running away, but they weren't fast enough. One poor cheetah died, the other two cheetahs were sad and angry, so they ran back and scratched the hunter. The hunter shot the cheetah, but just missed it. The cheetah ran and found their family.
Yeah, so it depends really on the process that the kids were at the time. Some kids were more advanced and they could be making more like judgment about minor, major keys, rhythm. But at this age, the kids were 6 and they just made the song. I accompanied them and they could tell me a little bit about the emotions they were trying to go for. So yeah, that was our process for this first project. Let's look at the next one, which is a little bit more advanced. Thank you. So this is another project that a lot of times when we did songwriting projects in class, we were just using 1 hour or less to make a song happen. So let's maybe hear a little bit about this one.
วันหนึ่งเราไปทะเลเราไปกันเอง2 คนทะเลที่เราไปวันนั้นเราเจอกระต่ายและม้าประมาณ50 ตัวหลังจากนั้นเราไปกินข้าวที่ KFC ด้วยกัน เราซื้อไก่และเดินกินแต่ปรากฏว่าม้าเราก็ไม่มีเรามาแย่งเรากิน
So there was always that excitement that the kids got to share music with their friends, and it was their original song. These students were in P6, so that's like sixth grade. And they already learned about the concepts of chords and melodies and rhyming it a little bit. So yeah, it was just great to see their process. I didn't guide them too much because at this point, they've listened to so much music at home and they kind of have a sense of like where they want to rhyme things. So I just let them express and sometimes give them comments. And yeah, the next time they try to do a new project and yeah, with the comments taken into account. Yeah, so that's another project. Okay, I have a couple more. I hope there's still time. So because I have a background in classical music, this is what I see. I didn't start with telling my kids how to read notes or how the orchestra works, but this is like their way of exposure in my class. So let's see. Yeah, so I learned this music when I was in college, but it was really cool to see the kids' reaction to it. It was just become a like class tradition to do this every time they hear this Greek piece. And after this fun session, I got to talk to them about the orchestra instruments in the orchestra, a little bit of where Greek was from. Some, the kids at this stage, they enjoy so much about learning about new country names. So just as much context as I can give them for now, I think will be helpful for the future, which unfortunately I'm now in Bangkok, I'm not a part of now. But yeah, I think it stays with them and they just have joy of listening to something that they are already familiar with. Next, please. So that comes to the most theoretical I've got with my music education. Let's hear solfege. So I think this was their first time learning about solfege, and I just kind of introduced them the notes and then told them the solfege to this song. And you know, they make mistakes and they probably don't understand all the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do right away in the beginning, but at least they get exposed to it and they have a lot of fun. And you know, to give them, each of them, some responsibility to take charge of their own instruments or their own microphones, I think is really fun for them, and they feel like they really own the song, and they're not trying to compete with each other as much as trying to just sync together and make it one whole song as a class. And this is also a mixed age classroom. So the kids had different levels of understanding of music and also levels of processing information. So as you can see, they were doing different things. So I guess I don't have much of a conclusion for you where this is going or how I was taking my experience as a classically trained musician at the same time as someone who tries to make different arts all the time and try to put them in the classroom that I was a part of. And I was trying to learn from the kids as much as I could and try to keep the enjoyment, maybe a little bit too much, that at the end of the day, they could be doing a little more theory and more getting a little more knowledge, but I was getting a little serious. So I guess my classrooms are like more of a fun playground, but I think the kids have also learned a lot, and I've learned a lot from them. So for next steps, I am still exploring where I can be as a musician, but education is something I'm passionate about, and I'm also passionate about taking influences from other music to my own music. So we'll see how my musical journey goes next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thanisa. So I think it's sort of like answer our questions in some way that is it the end of performing musicians if you're not performing, if you're not spending time on stage anymore? And so what do you think of this point? I mean, do you feel that that's the end of the musician career, or can you find ways to still sort of like pass this on to how serious, like the if you girls in the last slide, you can see how serious they look, as if they are having their recitals or something. So can you share with us just a little bit, like how do you think on this point?
Thank you for the question. So I think there can be many different stages. I think before I felt like to be a good musician, you always have to keep improving yourself, keep going and getting on to the next stage, a bigger stage. But for me, it's okay to take some time forward and some time backward and just see where I am or what I can learn from other people. At the end of the day, I want to keep making music. I want to keep being inspired by other people's music. But when I feel like I'm not there yet, I do take the time to reflect and to listen more. So as of now, I'm not performing so much, but I'm transcribing music for a music streaming platform, which is like something that I get to learn so much every day of how other people are making music, what's in trend. You know, sometimes I feel like my music or my education, that's very good music, but it's also important to look around what people are consuming, what brings joy to people. and adapt my music accordingly or not, but at least I have exposure of information and the current trends and understanding of what people are up to with their consumption. I guess, you know, being a musician is not always about playing your instrument well, but I guess music gets people to dance, gets people to talk, gets people to socialize. And I want to be a part of that too, not just the person who delivers music to the world.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful response. Anything to add to that, Winnie?
No, I'm listening in total agreement. It was phrased very nicely, and I think that's something that's inspiring for generations of students to come. Yeah.
So it's just not us on stage all the time, but also providing places for others to be on stage and experience the same energy we had. That's wonderful. Maybe before we go into the epilogue audience today, any don't be shy, even though you're above 30. Please feel free to join in, like myself as well. So please go ahead and join in. Anyone? It's fine. I think they decided to give a stage to the under 30 at the moment. So in that case, should we go just quickly to the epilogue?
Yeah. So the epilogue, we've had our story. We're now at the end of the story, the epilogue, and what goes around comes around. So, you know, we've heard from our 5 artists, and you know, when I say what goes around comes around, it's because whatever they've mentioned has inspired Anothai and I so much in our own teaching. And here's a summation of some of the things that we've learned from our SEADOM 30 under 30 artists. That, you know, firstly, it's really important to meet students where they are in order to be able to relate and get to them. So students may have different aspirations. Students today have a different idea of what it means to be a musician. They have many more pathways available to them as compared to before. And especially for students in Southeast Asia, there are many unique opportunities. How can we help them identify these opportunities, even when they may not know, or we may not know that they exist yet? Students from today will also come with many different backgrounds. For example, Calista and Kenny came with a non-music, were not thinking of doing music initially and then ended up doing music. Some students may, not be classically trained, but end up going to a conservatory. So students now have a vast array of different experiences and backgrounds. How can we meet them where they are? How can we relate to them? I think what we really need to do is to diversify them. And also, students nowadays mostly are digital natives, but if we are teaching in a Southeast Asian institution, we'll realize that not all students who come in have the same access to education and technology. So again, how do we address that in our teaching? So those are some questions I had there. The second point is about opening doors instead of creating walls. So things like genres, things like cultures are like rooms. And sometimes we run the risk of creating walls between these rooms, when what we could really do is to be opening doors instead. And it's not getting rid of the rooms, we're just opening doors between the rooms. And in this way, students actually break free from categorizations, break free from boundaries and walls. And this allows them to freely explore their own identity. It also allows them to cross cultures and find unique opportunities there. Now, the third point that I really got from the group today is about exploring new and viable platforms as well. Students nowadays, as Thanisa has mentioned, may not always, may find themselves at a place where it may be hard to continuously be performing. What kind of pathways can we offer them? Students like Kenny will share that, it would have been useful to have non-performance pathways offered in schools as well, so that in terms of business, it could offer opportunities in the future. So what are some of these platforms that we can offer to our students so as to help them in their future endeavors?
So there are also few things that I've learned from you guys today as well. I really like how Calista raised about the ideas of students in these generations, that you already come with projects, you already make some theme projects, theme recording. So somehow universities and music conservatory have to sort of like tailor-made these to your needs rather than you fitting into a curriculum. So this is one point that I really learned from Calista today. I really love how Niranjan mentioned about respect the music regardless of what musical culture is. So respect the sound, respect the music. So, and if we can sort of like recite this, I think it will be really helpful for any music projects in the future. There will be no rift and wars between faculty members. I think it's just respect the music. That's going to be helpful. And then also some wonderful examples that Gabriel had said here. He's a role model of teacher in a way that he's willing to learn new things all the time. So to be a model student is also meant that you would be a role model teachers as well. So I think this is great examples that you are willing to demonstrate that you are happy to learn and continuously learning. So, and also thank you for Kenny for a wonderful color pencils motto. I really like that. I mean, these are pencils, just kind of like make sure that you have enough colors to be able to paint whatever you like in your own way. So start collecting, guys, and make sure that you sharpen those pencils well enough and ready for those things. And thank you also, Thanisa, for really kind of like showing me the strengths that even though like I know it's so difficult to you for you that we ask you to represent the artist, and while you're still in quest of finding your artistic path, and but once you accepted this, and in some way that you are willing to say that I'm an artist, but I'm still on a journey of finding my the way that I can shine, the way that I can inspire people, and you haven't stopped inspiring life. Even though they understand it or not, it doesn't matter. It's just kind of like scratching each other's back, writing down lyrics that no one understands. So that's really wonderful. That's a strength that I think we all artists is beyond resilience. It's complete faith, and it's a complete faith on these ideas of happily ever after. So if you don't mind me tying into this, I really like the words kind of like happily ever after. Can I ask all these five guys, do you still believe in happily ever after all this experience you've been through? Anyone?
Yes, indeed. It's still a journey. Still many years ahead of us, but yeah, it's a sequel. It's a continuous journey, and it's a happy ever after.
Yeah, I agree with what Niranjan has mentioned. I think my happily ever after for me need not necessarily mean already reaching a comfortable place, but I think being comfortable with yourself and being able to constantly adapt and move forward. That's what it means for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say just what Calista just said, that I think it's important that we don't look for a particular goal and stick to it, because the goals keep changing as the world keeps changing. So happily ever after probably does a lot with how the world is, and we adapt to it. Yeah.
So Gabriel and Kenny, anything to add?
Yep. Well, I think for me, happily ever after as an artist really means to continuously learn, continuously evolve, continuously create, especially with our role as artists in this world.
I think for me, happily ever after would mean more to empowering youth as a curator myself, and also lead them towards a path of spreading the joy of music to more people, even to the rest of the world. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So it seems like the story is not at the end. So happily ever after is what you learn along the way, and you take it forward in your life, isn't it? That's nice. Thank you. anything to add, Ling? So I'm passing this back to you to tell our audience about what is the sequel.
Yeah, we're still figuring out what happily ever after means. But I think from everything that I've heard today and definitely the responses of our 5 guests here, I think there's this sense of continuity and constant. There's a constant evolution there that's happening, and I think that also needs to happen in our teaching, which brings me to the first point of interinstitutional collaboration. So I just wanted to mention that, throughout this whole process of working in the 30 Under 30 project with Anothai, we've also come up with some collaboration in our classes where students can create their own projects, share their own projects, and collaborate with each other as well, which is also in line with this whole idea of collaboration and finding their identity through music. So I just wanted to put this idea out here in case, we have friends and fellow educators from other institutions who would like to collaborate as well, to please get in touch, and definitely that's something we can plan more on. I also wanted to add that, we are hoping to grow the 30 Under 30 project. And so if fellow educators or friends or anybody here would like to sign up for it, please head on to this form, fill it in, all right, and we will get back to you. So I do not know if it's possible right now, but if Anothai, is it possible to share this form link in the chat? Thank you.
I will do that later.
I think
yeah.
I think Pamonpan is already ahead of us.
Oh, that's great. Okay. In some, we will also share the slide that you see today, together with the link, so you can also look through some of these young artists' works and explore their website as well.
Yes.
Okay. So, and if you are interested, the next sessions by 30 Under 30 will happen during the PGM International Symposium, which is coming up in 1 week. And Ling will be hosting the sessions. And we also have the honor of Professor Bernard Lansky, who will act as provocateur to all these 3 sessions. So please feel free to check out at pgis.pgm.ac.th there as well. And they will be presenting, instead of 1.5 hours, they will do a 3 hours long, including a breakout room discussions and everything as well.
Yeah. So just to maybe give a bit more of an insight into that, the first hour will focus on artistic research projects, as well as performance projects that the 30 Under 30 artists have been involved in or have been creating themselves. The second hour will talk about community engagement projects that they have done around the region. And finally, the last hour will talk about education, how we can bring Southeast Asia into our education.
So just before we depart, is there any questions or response from our audience today who would like to share with us? Maybe we can continue this discussion again on the 27th of August, there we will have a bit more time to discuss as well. So maybe should we go to the final sessions here, Ling?
Yeah.
So these are the promotions.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that it's not the end, but it's kind of the end of the session. Do check out our Facebook page, our website, and any questions can be directed to our email as well. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience for today.
Thank you, everyone. And just a final note from our Southeast Asian Directors of Music Association office that we do have our General Assembly that's taking place. The General Assembly is taking place here on Saturday, August 28th. If you are a member of SEADOM, please do. We do encourage you to join us and share your opinions and your questions and everything like that. We're very grateful again for our moderators today and our panelists. It was a fantastic and wonderful, enriching time for me. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I'm sure everyone else did as well. With that, we'll say goodbye for now, and everyone have a safe and happy weekend. See you all.
Thank you very much, SEADOM. Thank you.